Hello and happy Thursday. I am very excited. Feel like I haven't done a solo episode in forever. I'm coming to you from Germany again. I hope you're excited about this episode, I was going to say, about this week's topic rather. So first of all, it's been really hot here, so I feel like I'm like 150 degrees Fahrenheit. But no, we've had beautiful weather over here. It's actually been absolutely a really, really nice summer. So I hope you've had a good week so far also. But I hope I'm not too flushed and that I can focus my thoughts properly on this week's topic, because I think it's such an important and actually really fun topic. Once you understand how your metabolism works, everything becomes easier. You move away from thinking manual calorie burn to teaching your body how to burn more on its own. So, topic obviously how to increase your metabolism. I'm going to start up this slideshow, more or less. Anyway, bear with me while I figure this out. Right. So everybody wants this, right? We want to increase our metabolism. We wonder, why do some people burn more calories at rest than others? Why can she eat so much? Why did I used to be able to eat so much and now I feel like my metabolism has slowed down? Why are the things that used to work, why are they not working anymore? Has my metabolism adapted? Is it because I'm getting older? Is it my genetics? Everybody in my family seems to be X, Y, Z and not burning that well, while this whole family is skinny. It's just their genetics. So questions like this, I think they all kind of pertain to this topic. So I hope you're excited about it as well. And by the end of it, you're going to understand what it comes down to. And unfortunately, that there is no shortcut to doing this. You've probably figured that out by now. But I personally can say a couple of things just about me and my body. Yes, I come from a family where almost everybody has a reasonable body fat percentage, where we grew up with vegetables in our diet and so on. Nonetheless, I have certainly seen the logic behind this on my own body over the course of time. I certainly grew up thinking, learning, being taught that cardio is fat burn and strength training is only if you want to get bulky, or it's only for men, or if you're into strength sports, that kind of thing. So I did come from that kind of background, and I only over time and on myself learned what or how your metabolism really works as well. And then of course this understanding has been strengthened and deepened over time through my clients as well, seeing the magic on their body, specifically the magic if of course people have never strength trained before, if people have come from a low protein diet and so on. So anyway, what do we want to get into? The motto or the goal should always be to get to your body to burn more on its own, because the thing is, while we think, okay, my calorie tracker or whatever is telling me by running so and so much, I'm burning so and so many calories. Most of the time, that's total crap. The thing doesn't know your dieting history. It's basing all of that on generic data, even if it's a really high quality watch like a Garmin and so on. It doesn't know how your body is going to adapt to that over time. Like, let's say the first time you run a 10K, you might be burning 600 calories, but already the next time you run the same 10K, your body is smarter and has adapted to that, so you're only burning 550 calories. The third time you might only be burning 500. That's why it's starting to feel easier. That's why it's starting to feel more, you feel like you're getting better at it. The thing with strength training, on the other hand, is that while in terms of time per whatever you're doing, you're likely burning less calories. The thing is with it though, your body, you can prevent your body from adapting much more easily, because you're increasing the reps, you're increasing the weight, you're essentially, and this is the most important part, you're building muscle, which is more expensive for your body to maintain than fat mass. So if someone has a body fat percentage of 20% and someone else has a body fat percentage of 30%, they're both the same height, age, weight on the scale. The person with the 20% is going to be able to burn more calories just at rest than the person with the 30%. The reason for that is, once again, your body is only ever going to maintain the tissue that it thinks it needs. So if you have 20, well, I guess that didn't really necessarily add up, but if you have that muscle mass, the muscle mass requires more energy to be upkept, to be it's more high maintenance, let's put it that way, than the fat mass. So I guess that's just the basic understanding. So that's why everybody, even if you don't want to look muscly, if you don't necessarily think you need that much definition, why you should still focus on having on building muscle, because not only is it going to make you look more toned and defined, it's also going to contribute to your body being able to burn more calories, or to require more calories to be upkept, to be maintained, than if you have a higher percentage of fat mass on your body. So there are, of course, some things that we cannot influence. We often think, oh, she's so tall, or, well, we don't think that, but like tall people on average are going to be burning more. People that are younger are going to be burning more calories. Generally speaking, men burn more calories because they have a lower body fat percentage on average. Your dieting history, we can't change either. You might be regretting all those yo-yo diets you have done in the past, those crash diets and so on. But there's nothing you can do about it, and bitching about it or complaining about it or wishing it would have been different is not going to change anything, right? So like, just focus. Let's just direct our focus on the things that we can change. And with the dieting history too, that is one point where people are like, oh, why is this not working anymore? It used to work. That's a really good question, or a very common question. And the reason is, once again, your body's main objective is to keep you alive, right? So it gets smarter every time you diet. It's kind of like a friend who is or a friend who you stood up. The first time they're going to be like, oh, that's all right, no worries, cool, let's just set another date. The next time, if you stand them up once again, they're going to be like, she's not really reliable. And then the third time, and so on, they're becoming more and more distrustful. And the same is the case with your body. If you're treating it badly and putting it in a steep calorie deficit, such as the case with a yo-yo diet most of the time, or with a crash diet, rather a fat diet, the first time it's going to be forgiving and thinking, oh, okay, it was just a short period of time. Now she's feeding me again. It's all good. I'm not going to take as much of a hit. The next time it's going to be thinking, my main aim here is to survive. I'm going to be a little bit more stubborn. I'm not going to let go of this fat tissue as easily. The third time it's going to be even more distrustful and thinking, she's just going to keep doing that over and over again. I want to keep her alive. That's why I'm really not going to let go of all this fat tissue. So it gets harder every single time. That's what I mean with this point. Nonetheless, we can change that. If you have yo-yo or crash dieted multiple times in the past, it just is what it is. We all live and learn. I have gone into severe calorie deficits, not really knowing what I was doing to my body in the past myself. And the great thing is that your metabolism is also forgiving. It's a great friend. So, if you teach it over the course of the time, no, I'm taking care of you. I'm always giving you refeed days. I'm staying at maintenance for longer periods of time. I'm taking care of my hormones. I'm not just beating you up, even with my thoughts and so on. it's going to forgive you eventually. And if you do the dieting right the next time, it might still be more resistant than it had been the very first time. The first time dieting is always the where you see the best results or the fastest results. It just is that way. And the same is, I guess, the case if you strength train for the very first time. You know, people usually see the most amount of gains in the first 6 to 8 months, really. But anyway, moving on. Another thing we can't really change is illnesses. You know, some people, they do have hypothyroidism. They have other hormonal imbalances that they are just born with, or that have come up over time for one reason or another, and we can't change that. Sometimes you require medication. Sometimes it's simply going to make weight loss harder, and we have to do certain things around that. But again, complaining about it or wishing it was different is not going to change anything. And genetics, of course, we can't change either. However, on average, really, research points into the direction that genetics is only influencing our weight loss to about 5, maybe up to 10%, and that is it. So simply blaming your genetics is not gonna make things better either. Most of the time, it is really the lifestyle practices and all the habits that we have picked up from our family or our environment that we perceive to be influencing our genetics. So for example, everybody in my family has heavy bones, or whatever that means, you know, or everybody in my family is struggling to lose weight, and you didn't really take into consideration that from a very early age onwards, all of you always just ate cereal for breakfast. Your lifestyle is not super active. You're not really outside very much, and there are not that many vegetables in your diet, right? So none of that is technically genetics, but it's just kind of upbringing that you're taking into this diet with you. Taking me to the points that we can change, which I have already partly touched on. Lean body mass, thank goodness we can change. We can increase your lean body mass and decrease your fat mass. So I should have probably put there body fat percentage. Food choices, which also influences our metabolism, and I'll get into that. We can influence our hormones to an extent, and we can influence sleep and stress management, which all of these 4 points are primarily how we're going to get your metabolism to speed up. Can't really put these things into order necessarily. They are all incredibly important, and we'll get into each one of them specifically. So lean body mass, how can we increase your lean body mass? Kind of seems pretty straightforward, but of course, resistance training. What does that mean for you? It can, you know, if you're completely new to that, body weight training is resistance training. You can do planks, you can do sit-ups, you can do air squats, you can do push-ups, all this kind of thing. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to go to the gym and train like a bodybuilder. You can do resistance bands, you can do dumbbells, you can do like even a little bit of like, you know, dancing or whatever to an extent. Yes, of course, that has a cardiovascular component as well, but if it includes like lifts or like anything that feels like resistance, even swimming to an extent, can be kind of considered resistance training. Of course, in order for you to progress, which we need over the course of the time, as I have explained in the beginning, you can't just do the same 3 exercises of resistance or resistance exercises, the same 3 to 10 rep scheme at the same exact weight for years on end and expect that your lean body mass continues to increase. We need to progressively overload, which means continuously increase what you're doing to an extent, to the rate that your body is able to adapt to it for longer periods of time. How else can we increase our lean body mass? By keeping calories in check, of course. If you go into a calorie surplus, meaning eating more calories than what your body is burning, you're going to increase simply your body mass. What you increase, whether you increase through muscle or fat tissue depends on, of course, what you're doing and to which extent as well. Like how high is your calorie surplus? How steep are you approaching this? Of course, we want to, if you're going into an actual gaining phase, it's very much going to depend on your approach, how much you're going to gain. And of course, we want to gain more muscle than fat if that is the case. Likewise, of course, going into a calorie deficit, reducing your calories to a point where you're consuming less than what your body is burning, it usually means you're losing fat mass. Most of the time you're going to lose a little bit of muscle mass as well. However, we want to counter that by resistance training and by keeping your protein intake high. You can also increase your lean body mass simply at maintenance, particularly mostly if you are reasonably new to resistance training, if you're doing a great training program which progressively overloads, as I just explained, and if your protein intake is high. The more of an experienced trainee you are, the less the chances that you're going to continue to improve your lean body mass percentage at maintenance. However, again, this very much depends on doing it right. Like if you keep your training varied enough, if you're intuitive enough, if you go through various periodizations at the time in the sense of perhaps still having a little bit of a calorie surplus from time to time and shorter mini cuts from time to time, but overall being in a maintenance phase, it can still work. Food choices. How do your food choices increase your metabolism? That is, it sounds random, but essentially, as you might know, our total daily calorie expenditure, so what our metabolism burns or how our metabolism works, is not just influenced by our basal metabolic rate, so what your body needs simply to maintain itself. As I have explained before, you need more at rest if you have a higher lean body mass percentage and so on. And it's also things like breathing, like blinking, all these kinds of things. It also is comprised of your exercise calorie expenditure, and of course, also there's only to a small extent, but probably somewhere between like 5 and 10%, by the thermic effect of food, which means as you digest things, as you break things down, your body needs energy for that. Your body, it's obviously work for your body. It's going to need more energy for that if something's harder to digest. So if something contains more fiber, for example, some part, like fiber is essentially the part of carbohydrates which is either soluble or insoluble, so can't really be digested in either way. But if it's soluble, it's kind of going to turn into like a gel-like consistency. Still, your body is going to try to break that down, and simply that trying means it's going to burn more calories as it's doing so. The thing or the macronutrient, however, that requires most calories in order to be broken down is protein, which is exactly why we always advocate I don't even want to call it high protein diet. It really is more of a moderate protein diet in terms of like 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body mass. However, it does appear high to most people because, generally speaking, the modern Western diet is rather low in protein. So anyway, but that's why we, particularly in a weight loss phase, really, really, really want to make sure that protein is at a decent level in order for your body to require more calories to break food down. How do our food choices otherwise influence our metabolism? Of course, blood sugar regulation, so your insulin spikes and so on, and metabolism are kind of tied together. I mean, insulin is just another hormone, which is also tied to thyroid hormone, and thyroid hormone is essentially the regulator for your metabolism. But on a different perspective, if your blood sugar is more in control, you're gonna have less cravings, your appetite is regulated a lot better, you're gonna have better energy crashes, or less energy crashes, you're gonna choose better foods overall. So this is really important as well. Alcohol. Yes, alcohol. I mean, specifically if we're tracking food, we always say, like, yeah, we encourage a flexible dieting approach, which means you should fit in your fun foods, you should fit in a glass of, or be able to fit in a glass of alcohol here and there, or even two. But just be aware that overall, alcohol, even if you log it, when it's in your system, your body is not going to be as occupied or as focused on other things, such as like fat oxidation or recovery and all of that, while alcohol is in your system. It recognizes alcohol as a poison, or something that shouldn't be in your system anyway. Therefore, its main priority is going over into, okay, let's clear this out, put everything else kind of on hold in the meantime, even proper digestion and so on. Let's just make sure that we're getting rid of this poison. And that's why, like, even if it fits into your calories, it technically sort of slows down your metabolism a little bit. I always say, like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the occasional glass of alcohol. Just be aware that on that day that you're having the alcohol, or just generally when you're having alcohol, it's more like driving with a handbrake on. It's not going to be as smooth, as easy as if you didn't have it in terms of weight loss or metabolism. And yeah, that's essentially it. Of course, not to speak of the fact that often consuming more alcohol leads to worse food choices as well. You're not going to feel as satiated or full from the alcohol as you would from food, because it's essentially going, like, more or less right through you, right? It's nothing that your body really has to digest per se. Caffeine, on the other hand, can actually sometimes, and I don't even actually want to say that too loud, because of course I don't necessarily want to encourage people to drink even more coffee, but well, to an extent I love coffee, but anyway, caffeine can actually speed up our metabolism a little bit, just in the sense of increasing the burning rate. I would be very cautious with that though, and probably just use it around your workouts, or specifically more like in the morning, maybe up to 2-3 p.m., just in order for it not to interfere with sleep, and maybe keeping it at like 2 cups per day. That's probably the best advice around that. Again, I've mentioned hormones. You probably didn't expect to see growth hormone at the top of this list, but growth hormone is something that we spike, and we do want to spike, women as well, through strength training in particular. And growth hormone, again, is like super closely linked to thyroid hormones, and just in general, as it says, it's an anabolic hormone, so it makes your body want to build more muscle. We want to encourage growth hormone. We can do so particularly through sleep, primarily through strength training, resistance training, but secondly, also through sleep and the right nutrition, not being in a calorie deficit for too long. It's kind of the main thing here. Insulin, again, linked to the blood sugar control I was talking about earlier. We don't want to have severe spikes, severe crashes, and etc. We don't want it to like flatline completely either, but because particularly around your workouts, like beforehand or like afterwards, insulin is actually like good to go up in order for cortisol to come down, etc. Like cortisol and insulin are always in opposing directions, or they complement each other. So we want to be mindful of that. Of course, we also want to have your estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, even as women, in the right place, because when all your hormones are in the right place, again, like hormones, they're all communicate with each other. So if your estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone is in a good place, it's more likely that your thyroid hormone and growth hormone and insulin are also in a good place. And of course, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are only going to be in a good place if your cortisol level is also in a good place. And cortisol, as you probably all have heard by now, like it's one of these buzzing topics once again. Cortisol is kind of like directly linked to stress, often called stress hormone. So we actually want high cortisol at times. We want to have high cortisol when you wake up first thing in the morning. This is when you should feel energized. It's it's making you do stuff, and you should have cortisol spikes. You should have some stressful moments during your day, for example, through your resistance training. It can also be spiked through things like cold showers and all of that. Those are good stressors. And the important part with cortisol is just that we're not on a constant high, that we're bringing it back down through food, rest, recovery, mindset, etc. And that at the end of the day, your cortisol curve goes down so that you are able to sleep very well. And again, like this is all linked, as you can see so well. Cortisol is only going to be in a good place if your sleep and stress management are in a good place. And if cortisol is constantly high, that hormone in particular is often why people hold on to low belly fat for longer. So that is one of the biggest signs that your metabolism is kind of thinking like, okay, I'm a little bit stressed out. I don't want to get rid of that last little bit. It's kind of my insurance policy. And the only time I'm going to let go of that is if we're able to manage the cortisol better and drop that down, which we can do through a good amount of sleep, avoiding overtraining. I should have put that there. It's so easy to do once you're in a good training routine, you're enjoying your training, you're seeing the results. Of course, you're getting the adrenaline dump after your training and so on. And so once you're on the hook with training, oftentimes we feel like, okay, I need to do more. But that's actually not true. At some point, it gets to a place where we see diminishing results. So actually, we're making things worse. We're adding more stress. And because of the stress, your body's no longer letting go of that extra body fat. So we need to find the right place of training. We do want to avoid stress through long periods of time of under eating, of course, and a calorie deficit in order to reduce fat mass and increase or at least reduce body fat percentage overall. We do need to most of the time go through some periods of calorie restriction. However, doing that in a strategic, periodized way is the key. Again, too much caffeine and also alcohol can be extra stress, can keep the cortisol higher. We can also continue to try and manage that and cortisol and all the other hormones better through better mindset, once again focusing on the things that we can manage and not the ones that we can't. Applying things like breathing techniques when we're stressed out, or just hitting a pause button and avoiding stress eating, avoiding emotional eating. All these kinds of things, as woo as they sound, even in research, even in studies, they have all been proven as very efficient techniques for reducing cortisol and therefore also optimizing your metabolism. So don't discredit them. They usually seem like the tiny little bit where you're like, oh, it's not going to make that big of a difference. And the thing is, they don't make a difference right away. They make a difference over the course of the time. You need to do those things consistently, like everything, but more so than anything else. It's not like you go to the gym and you feel great right away, or you have a good day of nutrition and you feel good pretty much the next day and so on. It takes longer. It takes more like 3 weeks of reminding yourself why you're doing something, reminding yourself not to let this and that affect you, reminding yourself to take a few deep breaths before you head into a conversation, all these kinds of things. And not to discredit daylight and going outside. Really, it doesn't, not everybody lives in a place that's sunny, I'm well aware of that, but at least going into daylight, ideally in the first few hours of the day, but if not possible at that time, at any time is better than not at all. It really doesn't get emphasized enough, in my opinion, when it comes to stress management and therefore also your metabolism. The last part, which affects your total daily calorie expenditure, is NEAT, is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So again, we had the basal metabolic rate. How much does your body burn just to exist, essentially, to ensure your survival? Then we have calorie expenditure through training. And then we have calorie expenditure through digestion, thermic effect of food, and we have NEAT, so non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and that kind of includes everything like that's not necessarily structured exercise. People kind of argue, like, does your 10,000 steps a day, your daily walk or whatever, count towards that, or is that technically exercise expenditure? I mean, we don't want to be splitting hairs here. The point really is, yes, you should do steps and you should do more than just an hour at the gym. Ideally, though, NEAT shouldn't be something that is an extra stressor to your system. It should be, if anything, you can make that something that helps you de-stress. Of course, yeah, your chores around the house are not necessarily something that is super relaxing. But like, yeah, your walk can be a good combination of the stress management just earlier and NEAT, for instance. Other things that can increase your NEAT are just, gesturing around, fidgeting more. How much can you force yourself to fidget more? You don't want to be like blinking all the time, or tapping a pen all day long in your meetings. That's kind of annoying too. But just make a little bit of a point not to sit up straighter, to stand up at your desk if you can, to do more chores around the house, or even on your rest day, mow the lawn, whatever it might be, park a little bit further away from the grocery store, that type of thing. That actually makes you more, well, I mean, obviously it adds to a manual calorie burn, but over time, your system just generally transfers that a little bit to an extent to your metabolism as well. So your metabolism is just more used to being an active person, and not just going into standby mode where it's like, well, she never really moves at all. I'm not really needing to put out to ramp up per se. As I mentioned, consistency, and as you are probably tired of hearing by now, consistency with everything that includes your NEAT and your training, your resistance training, with your total daily calories and protein. They're going to be the three main things when it comes to increasing your metabolism. But again, the hormone side of things should not be discredited, particularly if you're somebody who is currently struggling with hormone imbalances, or has things like, PCOS, etc., where we might want to apply specific strategies. And of course, the mindset techniques and so on, they should also not be discredited in things like going into sunlight or daylight at least, because all of that essentially does have the ability to increase your metabolism so that you burn more at rest, which is, of course, what we want to achieve here. I hope that all made sense. If you have any questions, any queries, any feedback, please feel absolutely free to drop them below, to send me a message. Even if you're just, wanting to say like, hey, I like this format, or hey, I wish there would be more pictures in these slides, or can you include a little bit of a more fun video here and there? I don't like this educational type of style. I'm seriously very, very open to hearing your feedback, because I am just learning myself also. So anyway, I hope you found this topic interesting also, and I look forward to hearing back from you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, or start to your weekend already.